Michelle, if you could just start, give us an acknowledgement where we are.
Wandiwa Waiba. We are streaming live from Karratha, Western Australia in the Pilbara. Wandiwa Waiba. Na jinda ngalaya na charana na ngando Aunty Bunny na ngundano ini Lynda Ryder ngando ini Michelle Adams. We are both Ijibandi, and we hope that you can listen in and be a part of our Wanga on justice issues.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And Lynda, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us something about you.
I'm Lynda Ryder. I'm now 66. I've been around for a while. I haven't personally had much to do with the justice system as a what do we call it? As a victim, but I've certainly had a lot to do with being on the sidelines with victims who are my family and trying to assist them through whatever they go through within the justice system.
Yeah, we've been talking about how traumatic this issue is for people and the devastation that it causes for individuals and families and communities, often over many years. So we're not going to focus too much on that because it is very emotional and personal for people. And really, we're going to try and focus on solutions. What would be an ideal justice system? What would it look like to have a justice system that was actually just for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? And we talked a little bit about the idea of having culturally competent systems and people. So could you explain a bit, what that might look like or what that means?
Should I start or? Okay. As an Ijibandi speaker, I'd also like to think that I'm an educator. I've been involved in language, been involved in a lot of community education, community development programs on cerebral boards, committees, for many years. I'm very passionate about two-way learning, and just yesterday and today, both of us, I did today, yesterday, both of us participated. We're really tired, sorry guys, but we're still thinking. Two-way learning. Two-way learning is we've always expected, I think society's always, society's always believed Aboriginal people to have the same level of education and knowledge as non-Aboriginal people, which is impossible. We have to recognize Aboriginal knowledge systems within our own right. And we have underutilized Aboriginal knowledge systems at many levels in our communities, in our society. And I think it's better coming from that we think about finding ways to prevent more of our people going into prison, so unless we see them turning up at courts and actually being sentenced and repeatedly sentenced for the same offences. What can we do or how can we help the system find better ways than just constantly resentencing people for same offences, which we see up here in regional areas. But that's taking 3 or 4 people, the years out of their lives that we miss them, that they're not doing community things with us. So yeah, two-way learning. I'm pretty keen on two-way learning. I'd like to see judges even, at all levels, be taught a certain set of competencies. I think the most offences we see, most offenders we see in the regional prison based up here is the drink driving offences, and common assault offences, and common drug offences. Now we need to do a lot more to educate people. Yes, we understand that. But I think we have to find alternatives than just locking people away inside prisons.
So how might judges behave differently if they had some cultural competency training or understanding?
I'm thinking that they should be considering a number of factors as to why a person may lead to reoffending. I think we it's in terms of Aboriginal way of treating offenders amongst whatever wrong things they do amongst us. We have our own way of dealing with those things. We don't lock people away. we might teach them a lesson, or take some kind of disciplinary action. The elders might do that. Family members would do that. But we don't lock our people away inside the system and deprive them of their civil liberties. And I think that's when I only think I couldn't. I only think if I put my own foot in their shoes, how I would feel if I was locked up in a cell and I couldn't.
I'm pretty sure I'd die on the spot.
I couldn't even imagine what it would feel like being put in the back of the paddy wagon. You know.
In fact, I had an experience like that at a funeral. We were going to a funeral, and I wanted so much to be with a brother who'd come to the funeral, but he came in a paddy wagon under police escort, and we had quite a distance to go before we got to the cemetery. And we'd walked out of the church, and I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to sit with my brother in the back of the paddy wagon and travel to the funeral. So without thinking, I did it. And I think I only went about 50 metres, and I had to bang on the door and ask the driver to just let me out on the road, because I didn't realise how much claustrophobia was going to get. I thought I was doing the right thing in being supportive, but I can't imagine anyone being in that situation. And sometimes our people travel great distances under guard. I just I can't imagine how they do it.
The system, from what you're saying, really almost needs to be redesigned from the bottom up. It's just not working.
Redesigned from top and bottom to meet somewhere in the middle to make it better.
To make it better. I think that the compromise needs to happen in terms of, okay, communities got to take some responsibility in terms of how we educate them. There's that prevention stuff, but unless people reach that thing in their mind where I know that's wrong for me and I know I'm not going to do it again, you can say that. But it's the social environment and fear factors that impact upon a certain type of people that makes it easier. They just fall into crime a lot easier. Poverty is the number one.
Maybe we should talk a little bit more about that. So beyond the justice system, the other systems that are impacting, and that's really the wider social and economic system where there's inequality and poverty. Would you like to sort of look at what some of the solutions there might be? How that poverty and disadvantage plays into the criminal justice system.
Education. I mean,
That's a hard.
There is no one definitive answer. That type of answer comes directly from bureaucrats that we meet lots and lots of times, don't we?
Yes.
And they come to us, and yet they're the ones who are sitting over there writing policy. And so they're the policy writers, they're the bureaucrats who always want to look for the answers to this Aboriginal problem. And you know what? We see ourselves of the problem.
Mm.
Yet she and I never commit no crime. We never seen the inside of a prison.
That's right.
We've never been locked up. And yet, because we're Aboriginal, there seems to be this...
Problematising.
I don't...
It's like the old saying, we're tarnished with the same brush.
Tarnished with the same brush.
You know,
There is a level of racism, I think, within the justice system, and that comes down to not understanding.
Within our justice system, they're allowed for punishment to occur that was as strong or as minimal as was required. And that allowed for shared grief about what's happened after that event. It creates a space for forgiveness and understanding, which is lacking from a white judicial system.
Yes.
It also helps then for the person who's done the wrong to pay back to the wronged, and they go away with a sense of their own integrity then, albeit much smaller than what they started with, but it's there. They become their own man or their own person again. And this is something that seems to be lacking from the judicial system. There has to be somebody who's right and somebody who's wrong, and yes, we acknowledge that, but the person who's right can also forgive the person who's wrong, and the wrong can give the person who's right. And we don't allow for that to happen. I don't know whether that's an important issue or not, but this thing of if there's no forgiveness and understanding, then that creates more vengeance, more anger, and is likely to add to the problem a little bit later down the track. Somebody's got to pay for whatever it is that needs paying. I don't know if that makes sense or if it's a part of the conversation, but
It suggests two things to me. I just would ask, one is that the Western legal or justice system could learn from Aboriginal systems and knowledge.
Yep.
And the other one is just creating culturally safe systems. So, yeah.
So if we're going to create a culturally safe system, is it up to the white justice system, I don't know how to term that, the white justice system to set the parameters for that, or is it for Aboriginal people to start having conversations about it and setting out what it is that they see as being, part of the reframing of looking at that as an issue.
So really that's almost a call for Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people to take the lead in reframing the discussion.
It would seem so,
It would
yes.
seem so, yes.
Yeah.
And it's a respect-based thing, and I think if we're looking at a level of competencies, how would we teach it? What would we teach? I'm talking about magistrates and the lower level courts. Okay, so those that see repeat offenders on direct driving license, because that's the majority of offenders that fill out these regional prisons. If you go and have a look at the stats, it will show you breakdown, different age groups, etc. I haven't seen any latest ones, but they would tell you.
So the question I'd like to ask is, some years ago, they set up what was it, a Noongar court, but it was for juveniles.
Court or something?
Koori court or...
Yes.
I can't remember what it was. But in essence, it was responsible Aboriginal people presiding over a court.
Yeah.
Wasn't the higher order stuff. I think it was the juveniles. And the mid-level stuff.
Yeah.
Them making a decision as to what would happen to the person being.
We do hope to cover that as part of the series, so we'll be covering the Koori Court, and we'll also be covering diversionary programs in Bourke and Cowra in New South Wales, so the communities there. But again, they've been led by community. You know, from what I understand, we haven't done the stories yet, but the real key to those programs has been strong local leadership. So working, sure, with, you know, NGOs or researchers.
It would be interesting for us to go and see something like that, because, you know, all we know is what we read in the paper or see on TV.
When we yarn and,
you
know.
Well, that would be great. We can, when we start to do those stories, you know, my colleagues, I think I mentioned Summer May Finlay is going to go out to Bourke to cover the diversionary work there, justice reinvestment, and Mari McInerney, a colleague, is going to go to Cowra to cover the work there. So, you know, we can definitely make sure any contacts or stories we can pass on to you. But yeah, it is important. I think that raises the point that it's really important. You know, while we need local solutions, you know, there's no one size fits all across this huge continent. To learn from each other is good, isn't it? To know what's going on in other places.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or you know, we've talked I guess about the judiciary and the legal system, but what about policing? Are there any, you know, issues around policing or things that you'd like to see changed?
It's got to have a tiered approach. So the police officers, I would say, would have to go some kind of instruction. So community competencies, what aren't they? So, you know, cultural competencies. Some very basics, understanding that not all Aboriginal people can talk to each other even within their family groups. And when the more remote you go in Western Australia, police officers have to be like that in order for them to survive a defeat in affair, so that they can carry out their community policing work. And more in the regional areas, I think it's far better and more practical to be able to give them some kind of teaching these cultural competencies so that their attitudes change towards policing. So policing is not just about being punitive. Policing is about working with the community in order for the community to keep each other safe.
Would you like to add something?
I've had cause to go and ask questions of police when I've had somebody I know in trouble, and you get the same stock standard answer of, well, look, I really can't let you know about that because that's, you know, we have to do our job. The Act doesn't allow for us to do any more than this, this and this. And so very simple things that we want to know at a social level so that we can help a relative or a friend, we can't even get that. So basically you're told to be on your way.
So they're not, I mean, that it goes, I guess, to the cultural competence issue, because they're not seeing people as part of their families.
No, they certainly don't. So they don't understand family dynamics. They don't understand cultural dynamics. They have no idea about who's... you don't expect police or anyone in the judicial system to know that when they first come, but surely somewhere along the line they can learn that fairly quickly if it was a part of the process. I mean, generally, and this is a very, very much a general comment, is they arrive in a regional area and they're probably there from between 3 and 5 years before they move on to their next career post. So within that 5 years, surely there's enough time for them to learn these, the bits that go with being culturally competent. And the other thing is too, that if that was a part of the system, very often, don't mind me saying it this way, white fellas think because they've learned it here, it applies there. You kind of have to take what you learned there, see what fits over here, and learn some more. And it's the same thing we've had with teaching. Teachers who teach in a remote area, who then go back to the city, and all of a sudden they're the experts on all Aboriginal issues within education. I mean, it don't work like that. Even we as Aboriginal people, when we move about from place to place, we sit quiet and learn about that place before we open our mouths, and you just sit back and wait and learn. And that's just how it is.
That's a very, very important point, isn't it? And I think not only for policing, but also for health professionals.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And teach. I mean, you said teaching and policing, but health professionals. It's hugely important.
So there are a couple of things I wanted to say.
Yep.
That we as family aren't given any space to help with rehabilitation, intervention, diversion, all that sort of thing with our families. Because most of us, well, we're all tackling poverty. We don't have the resources to be able to assist any of our family members or people we know. So consequently, we then turn our backs on people in need. And if there was a way that families can be assisted to help their own, it's like, the carer's pension. People who look after people who need looking after can get a carer's pension. But this is only that sort of thing. Somewhere you can go to get assistance when you're helping out a family member who's in trouble. I don't know what it would cost or any of that sort of thing, but oftentimes we can't do anything.
And that, I guess you're raising, another way that poverty is an issue here. So it's not only an issue for sort of getting people into the system, but making it difficult for family to help support them. Yeah.
And that cultural competency will go a long way to alleviating some of the stuff where people then start falling through the cracks. If every regional court had an Aboriginal, where there's a big contingency of Aboriginal people, those courts need an Aboriginal advocate who is either a part of the court system or community aid or whatever it is.
Surprising they
and
don't.
that advocacy, sorry, just to interrupt you, that advocacy service would go a long way in addressing exactly those issues you're talking about. We're not, that person is in a crisis. So when they're re-entering or they're coming back out of prison and they're coming back into the community, they don't know where they're going to be going to live. It's most times they're just glad to be out of prison, but then how do they start a life? What life did they have before going back into prison? Why are they reoffending? So we're not really addressing any of that, and it's that advocacy. So once people leave, once they leave prison, the support services should almost immediately be tick over. And so, okay, where do we go from here? What support service do you need now that you've just walked out of prison for 2 years, 12 months, 6 months, or whatever it is?
Yes.
But that support system seems to be, you will report every Friday to the police station and sign the book.
That's what happened.
End of story.
End of story. Or, yes. So if they're reoffending, but But there are always at 99% risk of reoffending all the time because they're coming back into the same situation that caused them to offend in the very beginning.
So you need early intervention and you need post-vention.
What are they? Those things, yes, that's community responsibility, but I think that the judiciary and the bureaucracy needs to meet us halfway rather than say, well, the problem is always in the Aboriginal community. We've got to keep punishing you. But we expect you to find your own solutions to your problem. We're not giving you any more money for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, how about we ask you up there to start learning a little bit about, terms, reference. What will those terms of reference be for magistrates, police officers?
Yeah.
How do we start that conversation with the WA Police Academy?
Yeah. Now we've been today at a language conference, the Pilbara Languages Expo, and I'm just wondering about, how language and culture links into some of these issues.
Language is everything. Language is everything. If you can't communicate, well, then you're just a non-person. How do you ask for what you might need? How do you advocate for yourself? How do you problem solve?
And how does the justice system currently work in that sense?
Well, the justice system sets the parameters for what happens to any one person. I mean, going into a courtroom, you can't advocate on your own behalf even, let alone, everything has to be told through a third party who is supposedly advocating on your behalf. But oftentimes, even they could be the cleverest lawyer in the world. They know nothing about you. They only look at what it is that you're there for, and judgment is made on that. Nobody cares whether you're a good upstanding citizen otherwise. Nobody cares whether or not you're a good father to your children or a terrific sister to a brother. All that kind of stuff just not even in the mix. And people who sentence, like JPs. I mean, I always thought justices of the peace were they're ordinary citizens, aren't they? Who aren't trained in, they do some training.
They do some training.
Some training, but they don't have, all the legal stuff at hand. And they are generally the good, upstanding white citizens in towns that know nothing about us, know nothing about our people. Wouldn't know Joe from Adam. Joe from Adam. All that kind of stuff. I mean, our justice system, it's at least with people who know the people that are being sentenced, or so to speak, or the people who are in trouble. At least you know that person, and you know their family history, and you know where they come from, you know what language they speak, you know a lot about them. So whatever the punishment that is given fairly, because you know all the bits. But JPs, even magistrates at times, they make up their mind on what's written on paper.
And then because you get these pre-sentence reports.
Yep.
So you get these pre-sentence reports, and the pre-sentence reports is supposed to be a judgment upon what risk this person is of reoffending and how dangerous their perception is to the community. Now, I don't know how they police that. I don't even know how they, even like, I lost my train of thought now.
Yeah.
So all in all, what I'm hearing is that the system is very foreign for people. I mean, to the sense the language is foreign.
It is. It is a colonial structure, historical. In terms
Historically,
of
yes,
it's a colonial structure, and that is why Western culture deals out. That's how Western culture sets its rules on you steal something, whatever it is, circumstances you steal, how valuable it is. If it's going to impact upon somebody else, well then they measure. So it's like, how does the crime, punishment for the crime, how does it?
I was, as you were saying that, I could picture in my mind the convicts, you know, those that were poor over in England, before they all arrived over here, poor fellows, and stealing a loaf of bread to go and feed your family, and being imprisoned, and the prisons being so full that you put in a boat out to sea. Now, how silly is that? And then being sent way, way across the other side of the world because you stole a loaf of bread. Whereas if it wasn't within Aboriginal society, we would say, oh, Mano, he must have been hungry, gone to feed his kids. Let him have the bread, we'll make some more. Now, why couldn't they have taken that approach from the beginning? And I find it hard to understand the English legal system, the Western legal system. Too punishing. I mean, sure enough for axe murderers and stuff like that, they deserve, you know, they deserve what they get. But have a look at all the circumstances even surrounding that.
I think it comes down, they say, it comes down to intent. So whether you intend to or not, you are still guilty until proven, or you are innocent until proven guilty. So if you intend to take something, or if you intend to do something to someone, it's the thought. So, but if someone is taking a packet of chops because they're taking it to eat, why are we punishing people for being hungry? Why are we locking people up for being hungry?
Stories of the children being locked up for taking a chocolate bar.
But that's another example. That was the worst thing that ever happened.
It is, it's terrible.
You want to stop for a while?
Yeah.
Okie doke. Is there anything you'd like to say before we conclude?
Just that I hope that anything we've said can be taken in the way that it was given, and it's shared, and it helps somewhere along the way to get people to think differently about a lot of things. Not just the justice system. I mean, there's justice in education, there's justice in housing, there's justice right across the board. Are we being a just country? Are we being just to everyone? I don't know. I would say probably not.
Anything you'd like to add, Michelle? Otherwise I'll sign off.
No, not anything more. I just did that last week, Bloody Lynda.
Yeah, very powerful. Well, thank you both very much. It was wonderful hearing from you, and thank you everyone for joining us online. And at some stage down the track we'll have a summary at Croaky blog for everyone to read as well. Goodbye now.
Bye.
Bye.